May I pull it up the hill?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Here we go. Yeah.
It's not fast, but it's just enough for what you want it to do. Third gear lasts forever.
Yeah.
1990 Plymouth Laser. Between every notchy and eager gear shift lies a sublime happiness.
Oh, that wasn't a good one. All right, another hill climb. First, sorry.
You're fine. I told you she could take it. There's not very many that can take it.
With every pull of the braided steel throttle cable, opening the basic throttle body and activating the simple OBD1 ECU awakens a nostalgia for a time period that you just missed.
You know, your harder corners.
Yeah, look at, yeah.
I just accelerated through it, and there was just only a tiny little bit of protest from the front wheels.
If you would have hooked that brake just ever so slightly, that wouldn't have hit. That wouldn't even,
really?
Yeah.
Hey, get back to the Plymouth Laser in a minute, but thank you, sponsor. Thank you, Factor, for sponsoring regular car reviews. Factor are fresh, never frozen meals, dietitian approved, and today's choice is, they call it Indian style buttered chicken. I mean, it's curry chicken. It's curry, nah, it's good. It's curry chicken with cauliflower rice. We just got done filming another car today. I am so hungry, and this is hitting the spot so much. A little hot. And this one time they gave me a double order of the cold pressed juice. I only got a single order with it, but this time it's unnormal. Seriously, if you want to keep your health goals in check, practice portion control. And Factor really helps with that. This is the correct amount of food you should be eating if you're trying to, let's be honest, let's call it what it is. Lose weight. It's all about portion control. And Factor helps with that. You will be satisfied. It will taste good. And you get all different kinds of choices of what type of food you will want. I like the Protein Plus one. You can have vegan, you can have vegetarian, you can have keto. You're all set. So use code REGULAR50 to get 50% off your first order. And they also have, I'm drinking apple beet ginger. I'm going to be so healthy, I'm going to fart. Maybe that's just me. Maybe you won't, but I will. Click on the link in the description. Use code REGULAR50 to get 50% off your first Factor box. And now, back to a Plymouth Laser. This is a 2+2 front-wheel drive sports car from the bright early 90s. 1990 to be specific, when cars didn't have to be fast to be exciting. And when the national origins of the car were not a selling point. Is this an American car? Is this a Japanese car? What is a gray market import anyway? The badge says Mitsubishi, but this started life as a Plymouth Laser, and so says the registration. The previous owner badge and bumper swapped the Chrysler variant of the Mitsubishi Eclipse back into a Mitsubishi Eclipse because I guess that's somehow more legit. And the current owner, Adam, engine swapped this DSM car from the 2-liter 4G63, which made 135 horsepower and 130 pound-feet of torque, to the 2.4-liter 4G64, which made 155 horsepower and 163 pound-feet. Now that's only 20 more horsepower and 33 more pound-feet of torque. But then comes the old school tuning. On the dyno, this made 172 horsepower to the wheels and 200 foot-pounds of torque to the wheels. And that's in a car with a curb weight of only around 2,600 pounds.
I'm feeling that torque you were talking about, your extra half liter.
Makes all the difference in the world.
I am way braver in this than I am in the 370Z. Which which is very fast.
Yes.
Probably corners a lot more tire in it for sure.
This is the epitome of slow cars fast is more fun than fast cars fast. Oh, she'll light them up. She'll chirp second if you want her to. I love this car, man.
Yeah.
So it turns third gear into an elastic slingshot, pulling you up twisty roads with a sultry tug of sexy torque steer. And the exhaust growls and vibrations shoot through like a tens machine, pulsing through the thin underbody. The do-nothing thin A-pillars leave you with a view as close to unobstructed as you can get in a hardtop. And the pop-up headlights still function as high-beam flashers even when folded down, because what appears to be running lights, or DRLs, are fake. They're just plastic lenses, empty plastic lenses that direct the downward-facing headlights, when they're folded downward, to shine what light is getting forward up and out again. So that means if you flash to pass somebody but your headlights are down, they'll still shine out through the fake DRLs down here. And the farther we get from the DSM era, the more I feel the need to explain it. Roman talks about the Diamond Star motor era of Chrysler and Mitsubishi in his story on a story about Lee Iacocca, or maybe it's the one about the Chrysler-Mercedes merger, but the short version is that Lee Iacocca was winding down in the late 80s. He was leaving Chrysler better than when he found it, after securing them a government bailout in 1979, and then turning the entire business around so fast that the loan was paid off 7 years ahead of schedule, before finally retiring in 1992. Iacocca had his eye on either one of two guys in the General Motors corporate hierarchy as his successor, Louis Hughes or John Smith Jr. Chrysler's executive vice president, Bob Lutz, was another guy famously in running for the job, and probably would have done a great job in the role considering the wealth of experience he had in executive positions at the other companies like BMW and Ford. But apparently the Chrysler board didn't like Lutz, and I guess they didn't like his other two candidates either, because they went for a different guy, Bob Eaton, a different General Motors executive, but one who had never ran his own division before. Iacocca owns the mistake, claiming he didn't vet Ethan like he should have, so he attempted a hostile takeover in 1995 with the backing of a Las Vegas billionaire, but the attempt failed and we ended up with the Daimler merger. Also in the midst of all this, Chrysler was making cars with Mitsubishi because it was one of the more profitable revenue streams the company had at the time that wasn't just another Jeep product. Okay, screw making a long story short, long story made longer. We're keeping this history lesson going, so take out your books, turn to page 111. I haven't decided this is going to be on the test, but the test is definitely going to count for 3/4 of your grade. And side note, that's always been weird, right? Grading systems in school are like Family Feud. The last round is worth so many points that you can lose the first 3 rounds and get to the fast money round if you win the 4th. It's a waste of everybody's time, and the losing family has to just stand there and clap, all wearing the hang-dog expression of one of Morton Joe's wives. Anyway, Chrysler had 15% of Mitsubishi since the late 1970s, which gave them the freedom to experiment with captive imports, rebranding Japanese models and selling them as homegrown US products. This was a smart strategy for that decade because of the fuel crisis and the move toward compact cars with better gas mileage. Chrysler didn't have anything that fit that bill anyway, and consumers wanted something, and demand for import cars was rising for those exact reasons. So Chrysler figured they'd save time having to conceive, develop, manufacture, and sell their own cars, potentially missing the boom. So instead, they'd have Mitsubishi make imports so they could sell it with their name on it. Chrysler basically said, "You'll do my homework, but don't make it too obvious." Now that worked for a while, until Mitsubishi started opening their own dealerships, and then suddenly, there weren't enough Mitsubishis to go around. And an import quota had also been mandated, such that Chrysler couldn't just import tens of thousands of Mitsubishis every year into the United States and call them Chrysler. So what they did is played a game called "I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you." Chrysler and Mitsubishi formed a third car company, at least on paper, called Diamond Star Motors in 1985. they opened their own plant in Normal, Illinois, and then proceeded to make cars that were anything but. See, we're not breaking the import rule.
These cars are made here in America.
So Diamond Star Motors not only gave us the Plymouth Laser, but also the Mitsubishi Eclipse, the Eagle Talon, the Mitsubishi Galant, and the coupe versions of the Dodge Avenger, Chrysler Sebring, and Dodge Stratus. There was the Dodge Colt Vista, the Eagle Summit. You know, my first car was a Dodge Neon, and I remember I test drove an Eagle Summit wagon. Like, it was a little tiny wagon that had a sliding door on it. And looking back, I wish I would have taken that Eagle Summit. Oh, that would have been such a cool car. Anyway, over time, Diamond Star Motors would arguably have more misses than hits, but they helped Chrysler continue being prolific in the 1990s, as these cars were basically everywhere. In some ways, it helped offset the negative press, like sales declines. So anyway, this one with the engine swap. Even though it has a 2.4-liter 4G64, he's still getting around 22 to 24 miles per gallon, and that's if you drive it like a sports car. But when he takes it easy, you can get 30 miles per gallon out of these things. And there aren't too many cars like this right now in 2024. I suppose you have the Toyota Corolla, the Toyota Corolla hatch with the 3-speed turbo. That's like a sort of economy car that's performance-oriented. There's the Hyundai Veloster Turbo. That's sort of a something. I guess you could also include not the Honda Civic Type R, but maybe the Honda Civic Si with the turbo. That's kind of okay. And the Toyota 86, Subaru BRZ, and Scion FRS. I know they've been around for a while, but that's what's coming to mind right now. But this was sold as just a cheap little performance car that was economical and had a big liftback. You could haul stuff in here. And it's 90s Mitsubishi. It shows its sturdiness, its operational vitality. No, you shouldn't come into this experience with a stock engine expecting a ton of horsepower. But these cars were built to a budget. It feels like a byproduct of the same kind of entropy all those early 90s cars faced, that being rust and rot, that no matter how much you care for this, you're going to start hearing sounds. You're going to feel differences in operation as it ages. As you drive it more, or even as you drive it less and try to preserve it, you're going to feel the passage of time with DSM cars. But the Plymouth Laser, or Mitsubishi, I'm tired of saying them all, it's a unique experience that cannot be replicated right now, partly because of how unsafe this car really is. No, these A-pillars will not protect you in a crash. No, the check engine light won't throw a code. You got to get out a book because this is OBD1. It's going to flash a Morse code in you, like Jodie Foster trying to decipher the message coming from Vega. But it's just so proportionally perfect. This is a car that's meant to be pleasing at low speeds and exciting at high speeds, all the while caressing you with eagerness. Between every time you shift this, it's like, you ever get a lucid dream and you're like, wow, maybe if I fall asleep, I'll have another one. And you do. You can come back and then have another play time in the astral plane. That's what a Plymouth Laser feels like. You get to play all the time. The 2.4-liter 4G64 is like a why I oughta spunky little engine. It is dying to race C4 Corvettes and Fox body Mustangs. And on these back roads, I feel that the extra 400 cc's in this Laser is just enough torque to hang with the aging Ford and Chevy small blocks. And on stock suspension. Which brings me to a rant on the evergreen trend of lowering cars. Yes, race-modified cars are lowered. But real life isn't a controlled and prepped racetrack. And you are not a race car driver. Are you getting paid to drive a car around a racetrack? No, you're not a race car driver. And your hard HKS or whatever brand coilovers are just making your car skip and bounce about, making it hard for your tires to maintain a constant contact patch with the road. Just keep your car stock and take some laps with a driving instructor. What's that old saying? Work on the nut behind the wheel before you turn nuts on your suspension? My time with Monica Harrison and David McNett made me a better driver than all my time with an F-boy lowered race boy cars scraping over everything. And this laser, with its ample ride height, is faster on these roads than all your scraping clout cars. Manual equalizer. Find me the right mix and unlock the male multi-orgasm code. Yeah. At the risk of sounding like an old man shouting into a void as cold and shapeless as mortality itself, the notion of a car company catering to consumers outside of your immediate wheelhouse feels like an ideology that's mostly missing today. And I get why it's missing. When weighing benefit against cost, it doesn't always make sense to make affordable performance cars, manual-equipped cars, cars that are fun as opposed to being just,
America muscle.
Hell, even making just sedans is cool now, right? So many cars you thought would be around forever are disappearing, leaving behind only memories and complaints of why they don't make cars like blank anymore. When your consumers feel overlooked, the end result is a vineyard of grapes so sour they could never be wine. But at the very least, we have examples of cars like the Plymouth Laser to experience firsthand, even if we'll never experience them again new. Not every experience worth having has to be completely unique or entirely new. So thank you, DSM community. Thank you for keeping these cars on the road and allowing us to experience them again and again.
You're a gentleman over 6 foot tall.
I'm 5'10".
Try to sit back there. Put that forward. Move that forward. You're not even going to get in unless I do that. That is for children at most.
Up to my feet. I remember. I do have a core memory of college. My roommate Chris did have this era of the Talon, the Talon version of this.
They're all the same exact cars, thus the different badges on it.
And I remember we were going to Sheetz or something like that, and I rode in the back. And I do remember because this guy was 6'4".
Right.
So this seat was all the way back and leaned back. And I do remember, I'm not going to do it because your car's so clean, but I do remember having to just sit sideways in the back just to fit in the back of this thing. I forget who was up here, Jeff or Kevin or something.
I won't do this.
Yep, I remember this.
Yeah.
I remember this.
Nobody over the age of 12 is really sitting back there comfortably. So this is where this car will really come alive. If you can get the left foot and get the left and the right foot working in unison. Yeah, left foot braking. So I have buddies who ran the hill climb down there in Reading. The Duryea hill climb.
My high beams are on or off.
Right.
Nope, there they are. I see them.
If you can go into the corner and drag the brake and stay on the gas, it'll rotate. Whoa. Like anything you've never felt a car rotate. Like if you can get the left and the right going at the same time. With me in the car, this car weighs 2,750 pounds. The drag coefficient. Now I realize I'm getting way out in the weeds here, but the drag coefficient on these cars is 0.25, which is almost unheard of in the modern age.
Yeah.
So
slippery.
Yeah, if you get this car on 78, the faster you go, you feel it suck itself to the ground. And it plants itself harder and harder and harder.
I feel more at home in this. Honestly, we were talking about my MR2 earlier, my AW11. I was kind of worried about that, especially with,